Okay, welcome everybody. This is Rebecca Hutton with NIMS. As you can see, this is a webinar to discuss the updates that we've made to the measurement materials and safety exam. So we're going to get started. First, hi everyone. So we're just going to go over a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have questions directed to me, you can put those in the Q&A or directed to anyone at NIMS. Please use the Q&A feature. If you want to chat with each other, you can use the chat feature. You can send messages, but when we get to the question and answer portion of the webinar, I will only be looking at the Q&A section. So because this is a webinar, participants don't have the ability to participate in terms of speaking out loud, but you can put your questions into the Q&A. You can do that at any time throughout the webinar, but I will be answering the questions at the end. This webinar is solely focused on the changes that we've made to the measurement materials and safety exam. We're not talking about other exams today. I know we have a CAM webinar coming up next month to discuss our new CAM credential, but the purpose of this webinar is specifically focused on the updates we made to measurement materials and safety exam. So our goals for today is just to kind of briefly go over what updates and improvements we've made to the test, talk about the objectives of the exam, highlight some training resources that are going to be available to you and your students, and then also go through a Q&A time at the end if there's anything that I don't cover that you have questions about. So first, why did we update the measurement materials and safety exam? It is the most sought after popular NIMS credential. It's sort of a gateway credential to NIMS other machining credentials specifically, but it can also be applicable to other manufacturing programs and courses. It is kind of a foundational credential that can start students on a path that leads to machining careers or other manufacturing careers. It's also a good validation of knowledge and skills. So we've had several customers, especially employers, use the MMS test as a kind of prerequisite for entering into an apprenticeship program or an internship program because it gives employers and schools the confidence that the individual has this baseline knowledge in manufacturing. So what improvements have we made? We had been collecting feedback over the last several years. The MMS test hadn't been updated in quite some time, as many of you who have been longtime customers probably are aware. So we updated it to remove some of the questions. Some of the feedback that we got was that the test had questions that weren't relevant to measurement materials and safety. It had drilling questions and grinding questions and just went way outside the scope of what the test was intended to be. So the first thing we did is reviewed the test and removed all of those questions that were outside the scope. Then the next thing that we did is we just went through the questions in general to identify if there were questions that were either just outdated in the way that they were phrased, or if they were confusing, or if they maybe just weren't relevant to industry anymore because they were kind of older. And we removed those as well. And then the next step was our technical work group, which was a group of experts from education and industry, went through the remaining questions and kind of we figured out how many questions were measurement, how many were materials, and how many were safety, and found that there was a pretty significant gap in terms of questions related to materials. And so we drafted new questions for all of the three areas just to kind of refresh the test. But in terms of safety and measurement, the questions that we added were essentially just more of the same types of questions, just changing them up. So if there were questions about how to read a micrometer or how to take a measurement with a certain tool, we didn't necessarily change the intent of that question, but we may have changed the measurement just so we don't have the same questions over and over and kind of water down the integrity of the test. So all of that took place last spring and even in the fall of the previous year. And the other thing that we did, as I'm sure you're aware, we updated our testing center a while ago, and it allowed us to have more types of questions that we can ask. The old test was all multiple choice because that was the only way we could ask a question. The new format allows us to use fill in the blank, drag and drop, true, false, multiple choice. You can use images and click and drag features. So we tried to take advantage of some of those options as well. So again, the actual content of the question didn't necessarily change, but the way the student interacts with that question may have changed, because now instead of having to choose a measurement from 4 different options in a multiple choice way, now they may have to actually calculate it themselves and just fill in the blank and follow the instructions to do that. So, and then the last thing that we've done, which is why I think many of you may have been interested today, is we updated the practice exam so to reflect the changes that we made to the actual test. So on the new practice exam, the students can take it right in the testing center, and I will show how to do that in a few minutes. But it kind of mirrors, if there's 30% materials questions and 35% measurement questions and the rest are safety, then that's what the practice test will look like too. So it helps your students get feedback on kind of where they might be weaker and stronger before they actually sit to take the test. And then the last thing we did was implement a higher passing score. So some of the feedback we got more from employers was that the cut score that we had was too low, and they wouldn't feel confident if someone came in having passed the exam at that rate. So we increased the passing score. It's now 70%, which is still reasonable, but I know that has been that kind of came as a shock, I think, to some programs, because they were used to the lower passing score. But we felt it was necessary based on the feedback that we got from industry and from our technical work group. So I'm just going to show you a few sample questions from the practice test, just to give you an idea. I mean, here it's a fill in the blank, like I mentioned. So they have to read the dial caliper and then enter in the correct answer in the format provided. So no, like 3 decimal places basically is what that's telling the student. And then a couple other sample questions. These are some of the questions more focused on materials to give you an idea of that. I apologize for some background noise. One of the challenges I think of working from home is construction hasn't stopped. So I'll try to keep it as quiet as possible. But again, these are the sample test questions for materials. And that, again, this is just an example. I don't want to spend a lot of time on today's call to talk about the actual content or specific questions. These are just some examples so you can see, kind of what some of the content we've added looks like. And then I think this is a good section for you. It's resources. So these are the resources that we have available. The online sample test is now available. Your students can access it by logging into their account, clicking on take a test, and then you can see where it's highlighted here to click here. And then they'll be given the list of tests and they can choose the measurement materials and safety sample test. This PowerPoint will be sent to everyone who registered or attended the webinar, and these are live links, so you'll be able to see that there. The other is a tool that I'm sure you're very familiar with, the Precision Machining Technology textbook from Cengage Learning. That all the material covered in the test is covered in that textbook. Tooling U also has online courses that are aligned to our program. Haas has just released some new learning resources that are mostly CNC focused, but they do include some information that would probably help students on this test. And then the final one is our MMS credential translation that if it's in our resources section on our website, you can just search for it, and it gives you the kind of the KSAs needed by students to be able to pass this test. And then the final, I guess now, is Q&A. I do see quite a few questions coming in, so give me just a minute to look through, and I will answer them as best as I can. So one question is, will the tooling, measurement material, and safety fast track be enough for students to pass this exam? My answer to that is it should be. They have aligned their program to our test. I know at one point they were adding some more materials information into that, so I can check on that and let you know. So another question. It says, is MMS required, or can candidates go straight to level 1 or 2 tests and projects? NIMS doesn't have any prerequisites for our credentials, so if your students don't need the MMS test, they can go right into any of the other level 1 exams. Will the new practice test be available this year for the current testing window, or can they still use the old test to practice accurately? The new test is available now. It is live right now. So your students can access it anytime, and I would recommend using the new test versus the old one because it more closely reflects the changes that we made to the actual exam. Another question is, where were the questions pulled from? The questions weren't necessarily, didn't come from a textbook or anything. They're written by our subject matter experts. So that's why we have the sample tests, to give you an idea of kind of the general gist of those questions. Let's see. It's someone is asking if they had a student who got a 70%, but they didn't pass. If you want to reach out to me, it could have just been a rounding issue. If they got a 69.8 and it rounded up to 70, that wouldn't. I think the actual cut score is like 70.4, so I can double check on that. Let's see. The textbook, the revision 3 of precision machining, as far as measurement materials and safety go, really revision 2 or 3 is actually, either one are relevant for this test. It was none of the change. We made the changes when Rev 2 was out, so they didn't remove any material for revision 3 when it came out for that specific subject. For the fill in the blank questions, will the format of the students' answers cause them to get the question wrong? For example, if they just type 0.123 instead of 0.123, the system is set up to allow either answer, I believe. So as long as they have the correct numbers in the correct order, it should answer it as correct. When will the new test be implemented and replace the old one? The new official certification exam is already live, and it has been in place for several months. The new practice test just went live within the last 24 hours, so it's available now. Are there free resources available to prepare for the exam? The NIMS resources are free, so the practice test is free, and the credentialing crosswalk is free. As far as others, you'd have to contact those organizations directly. I know the Haas, all the Haas materials are free, but like Tooling U and Cengage are in the business of selling their curriculum, so those would have to be purchased. Can students use the Precision Textbook when testing? No, they can't. The only resource that we currently allow is a calculator and the machinist handbook. Can students take the test on a Chromebook? Yes, they can. It works in Chrome. Other questions? Will online proctoring be available for MMS? In response to COVID-19, NIMS has made online proctoring an option. If you are interested in that, please just email support@nims-skills.com and they can explain to you what the policy and procedure is to set that up. We are trying to be as helpful as possible, and that's any theory test is available to be online proctored right now during this time. We have sessions set up between, I believe it's April 20th and May 20th. So there's 3 sessions a week. You can sign up for any of them, and we can online proctor up to 20 students at a time. Can students take the sample test more than once? Yes. Other questions? There are some specific questions about specific programs and states. We'll have to answer those offline because I'm not sure 100% how various states or organizations are going to handle that. How soon can students retake the certification test if they don't pass the first time? We recommend that they take time to kind of restudy and get the exam. They can take the test twice. If they fail it the second time, they'll be locked out of it for 60 days. And you'd have to contact NIMS if they need to test sooner than that. That's just an automatic feature of our system. Was the updated study material completed after last week? Yes, it was. The study guide itself, the PDF document, has not been updated. The information provided there is fine and up to date. It's just the practice exam on the NIMS testing center that has been updated. Just looking through a few more questions here. There are several questions still coming in about online testing. That is available. It is available for measurement materials and safety and all of our tests. So, like I said, please contact NIMS at support.com or support@nims-skills.com. And then one more thing that I do want to mention, several people had stated they didn't receive announcements and weren't aware that the MMS test had been updated. Please make sure that you are signed up to receive our emails. Some people opt out, and if you've opted out, we have no way to contact you to let you know of these updates. And also check your spam filter, make sure that you have our support email in your address book so we don't get filtered out. We have had some questions about the materials, questions that were added if they're too advanced for the student level. They were reviewed by our technical work group, our subject matter experts, and they felt strongly that the questions were level appropriate. We are taking another look at it because we've had that question asked several times. If there is a determination that is changed, we will, review the items and let you know if we've made any additional changes. But for now, the consensus has been that they are level appropriate. Let's see, are you open for more changes if needed? I think that's sort of what I touched on we want to try to be as responsive as possible. Obviously, we want students to pass this test. We want them to be able to earn the credential. So we will continue to be reviewing the results of the test and doing analysis on that and making changes as needed. And like I said, please make sure that you are signed up for our newsletter so you will get those announcements when they come out. Do students have to be registered with NIMS to see or take the practice test? Yes, they do. They have to have an account with NIMS so they can log in and get access to the test, but it's free to log in and create the account. We will be making this presentation and the recording of this webinar available to everyone who participated or everyone who even registered for the webinar, even if they weren't able to attend. We will also put together an FAQ. If there are questions here that we missed and didn't get to today, we will be reviewing those after the webinar, and we will send an FAQ along with the recording and this presentation. Just looking at a few more questions coming in. To be clear, we didn't update the study guide that is on the resources page of our website. What we updated is the practice test. So the information included in the study guide is still relevant and still accurate, except for the practice test at the end. We recommend that you use the online practice test in the testing center for that. So in terms of, there's a few more questions about online proctoring coming in. In terms of that, we're currently hosting 3 proctoring sessions a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you contact support, you can get the information from them. They'll be able to walk you through what you need to do if you want to use online proctoring at this time, since your students aren't able to come into live proctoring sessions. So just contact support and they can send you all the information of how to sign up and what you need to do. Okay, I think we'll take a couple more questions. If you have specific questions, again, you can just email support. We will make sure it gets to the right person. Depending on what the nature of the question is, we will direct you to the right individual, but just start with support and we will go from there. So I think a lot of the questions I'm seeing now, I think we've already addressed. There are a few questions coming in that are specific to questions on the test. Those we're not going to answer here, but if you email support, we will get back to you on those. Okay, so I think that is most of the questions. Like I said, there's a lot of questions flying in, so we will go through those and include any additional answers when we send the email with the copy of this presentation and the recording of the webinar. So if we didn't get to your question, I apologize, but we will review them all and make sure that you get your questions answered. So with that, I really thank you for attending today. I hope everybody stays safe and stays healthy. And we look forward to getting back to normal soon, hopefully. Thanks again for attending, and I think that will conclude our webinar. Thank you.